In the heart of Seattle, a city alive with rain and dreams, James Carter stands as the towering figure behind Carter Enterprises. His wealth fills a grand mansion overlooking the Puget Sound, yet his life feels empty. For years he has battled a strange condition called ajusia, a loss of taste that steals the joy from every meal. The finest chefs from New York to Paris have tried to awaken his senses, but nothing works. Doctors whisper about stress or some hidden illness, but the truth lies buried deeper in a secret he doesn't yet know. Sophia Carter, his wife, slips a rare chemical into his food each day, a poison that numbs his taste buds and keeps him under her control. James doesn't suspect her, not yet. He only knows the world has turned bland and he feels lost in it. Sometimes, late at night, he stares out at the city lights and wonders if he'll ever taste life again. He murmurs to himself, "I've built an empire, but what's it worth if I can't even enjoy a simple bite?" Across town, in a quiet suburb, Emily Harper moves through the small, cozy space of Harper's Kitchen. The little restaurant hums with the clatter of pots and the scent of fresh herbs. She's young, barely past her 20s, with hands that dance over ingredients like they're part of her soul. Cooking isn't just a job for Emily, it's a lifeline. It ties her to memories of her mother, who taught her to chop onions and season soups before kidney disease stole her strength. Now Emily cooks to keep those moments alive, pouring love into every dish. She works late, wiping down counters, her mind heavy with worry. Her mother's condition worsens, and the hospital bills pile up like a storm she can't outrun. "If I could just win that cooking contest," she whispers to herself, "I'd save her. I'd give her back the years she gave me." James hears rumors of a mysterious figure called the Culinary King, a chef said to craft dishes so extraordinary they could heal any palate. Desperate, he sets out to find this legend, his driver weaving through Seattle's misty streets. Fate, though, has other plans. On a whim, he stops at Harper's Kitchen, drawn by a warm glow through the window. Inside, Emily plates a dish of maple-glazed chicken, the aroma of caramelized sugar and roasted meat curling through the air. James sits at a corner table, skeptical but curious. She sets the plate before him, her hazel eyes meeting his for a fleeting second. He takes a bite, expecting nothing, but something shifts. A faint sweetness brushes his tongue, a whisper of flavor he hasn't felt in years. His eyes widen and he thinks, "What is this? It's like waking up from a dream I didn't know I was in." Emily watches him, unaware of the storm she's about to enter, her heart steady with the quiet pride of her craft. For James, this moment is a spark, a crack in the wall that's held him captive. For Emily, it's just another night. Until it isn't. James Carter sits in the dim light of Harper's Kitchen, the taste of Emily's maple-glazed chicken lingering on his tongue. It's faint, like a memory he can't quite grasp, but it's there, the first crack in the wall of his ajusia. He looks up at Emily, who wipes her hands on a faded apron, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. "This is incredible," he says, his voice low, almost reverent. "How did you do it?" Emily shrugs, a small smile tugging at her lips. "It's just chicken, a little maple, some love, nothing special." But to James, it's everything. He feels a flicker of something he hasn't known in years. Hope. "I've eaten at Michelin-starred restaurants across the world," he tells her, "and nothing has come close to this." Emily blushes, brushing off the compliment. "You're just hungry," she says, turning to clean a pan. Inside, though, her heart lifts. Maybe I'm not so bad at this after all, she thinks, her mind drifting to her mother, lying frail in a hospital bed. James can't let this go. The next day he returns, this time in a tailored suit that screams wealth. He finds Emily behind the counter chopping vegetables with a rhythm that feels like music. "I have a proposition," he says, leaning against the doorframe. "Come work for me. Be my private chef. Name your price." Emily pauses, her knife hovering over a carrot. She looks at him, his sharp jawline and tired eyes, and feels a pull she can't explain, but she shakes her head. "I don't cook for money," she says firmly. "I cook to see people smile, to keep my mom's spirit alive in every bite. You can't buy that." James respects her resolve, but he sees the worry etched into her face, the weight of something unspoken. "Think about it," he says, sliding a card across the counter. "I need you more than you know." As he leaves, Emily stares at the card, her fingers trembling. "I can't leave this place," she whispers to herself. "It's all I have left of her." Days pass, and Emily's world crumbles. Her mother's condition worsens, the doctors delivering news like a punch to the gut. She needs a transplant soon, or we'll lose her, they say. The cost is staggering, a mountain of debt Emily can't climb alone. She sits by her mother's bedside, holding a thin hand, and whispers, "I'll find a way, Mom. I promise I won't let you go." That night, she digs James's card from her pocket. Her resolve breaking, she calls him, voice shaking. "I'll do it," she says, "but only because I have to." James hears the desperation in her words and feels a pang of guilt, but also relief. "You won't regret this," he replies, already imagining her in his kitchen, bringing light to his shadowed life. Emily arrives at James's mansion, a sprawling estate perched above Seattle's skyline. The air feels cold, the walls lined with art that looks untouched by warmth. She clutches her knife roll, her only anchor in this strange new world. James greets her, his presence commanding yet softened by a quiet gratitude. "Welcome," he says, guiding her to a state-of-the-art kitchen. "Make yourself at home." Before she can settle in, Sophia Carter sweeps into the room, her heels clicking like a warning. Tall and striking, with eyes that cut like glass, Sophia sizes Emily up. "So, you're the new chef," she says, her tone dripping with disdain. "Don't get too comfortable." Emily nods, swallowing the unease rising in her throat. "I'm just here to cook," she says, but Sophia's gaze lingers, calculating. That evening, Emily prepares her first meal for James, a simple dish of roasted vegetables and herb-crusted cod. She plates it with care, her hands steady despite the nerves. James sits at the dining table, watching her with an intensity that makes her cheeks flush. He takes a bite, and the flavors bloom, subtle but real. "This is alive," he says almost to himself. "I can taste it, really taste it." Emily smiles, a warmth spreading through her chest. "I'm glad," she replies, her voice soft. "It's what I wanted for you." Their eyes meet, a silent thread weaving between them, fragile but growing stronger. Sophia watches from the doorway, unnoticed, her lips tightening. "He's changing," she thinks, a spark of jealousy igniting. This girl is trouble. As weeks pass, Emily becomes a fixture in the mansion. She cooks for James daily, each dish a step toward healing his senses. He begins to seek her out, not just for meals, but for conversation. One night, over a bowl of creamy mushroom soup, he asks, "Why do you care so much about this, about me?" Emily hesitates, then says, "Because cooking is how I hold onto the people I love. And you looked like you needed that too." James feels his heart shift, a wall crumbling inside him. "I've been alone longer than I realized," he admits, his voice raw. "Until you." Sophia, meanwhile, grows restless. She's been slipping away to meet Michael, her lover, funneling money from Carter Enterprises into hidden accounts. But James's newfound energy threatens her plans. One evening, she corners Emily in the kitchen, her voice low and sharp. "You look like me," she says, studying Emily's face. "Same eyes, same build. Interesting." Emily frowns, confused. "What do you mean?" she asks. Sophia smirks, an idea forming. "You'll see," she replies, turning away. In her mind, she thinks, "She's perfect. I can use her to keep James in the dark." Emily feels a chill, sensing the storm brewing, but she pushes it aside. "I just need to get through this," she tells herself, picturing her mother's frail smile. For her. James lies awake that night, the taste of Emily's soup still on his lips. She's different, he thinks, a warmth settling in his chest. She's real. Across the city, Emily sits by her mother's bedside, whispering, "I'm doing this for you, Mom, but why does it feel like I'm finding something else, too?" Their worlds, once so far apart, are drawing closer, pulled by a force neither can name. Sophia's shadow looms, but for now, it's just James and Emily, two souls tasting the first hints of something deeper. Emily Harper stands in the gleaming kitchen of James Carter's Seattle mansion, her hands busy with a skillet of sizzling salmon. The honey glaze bubbles, filling the air with a sweet, earthy scent. She's been here for weeks, cooking for James, watching his senses awaken with every meal. Tonight, she's making honey-roasted salmon, a dish she hopes will bring him closer to the man he used to be. James sits at the counter, his eyes tracing her movement. "You make it look easy," he says, a faint smile breaking through his usual reserve. Emily glances at him, her heart skipping. "It's not about the food," she replies. "It's about what it means to the person eating it." He takes a bite and the flavors unfold, rich and warm. "I feel it," he says, his voice soft with wonder. "It's like you're pulling me back to life." Emily's chest tightens, a mix of pride and something deeper she can't name. "I just want you to feel whole," she whispers, turning back to the stove to hide her flush. Sophia Carter watches this exchange from the hallway, her fingers gripping the doorframe. She's seen James change, his eyes brighter, his steps lighter. He's slipping away, she thinks, a bitter taste rising in her throat. I won't let her ruin everything. Sophia has spent years building her empire within his, siphoning funds to Michael, her lover, while keeping James dulled by the poison she slips into his meals. But Emily's cooking is undoing her work, and that can't stand. She steps into the kitchen, her presence sharp and cold. "Emily," she says, her tone clipped. "We need to talk." James looks up, but Sophia waves him off. "Business," she says, leading Emily to a quiet corner. There, she lays out her plan. "You're going to stand in for me," she tells Emily, her eyes hard. "At events, dinners, wherever I need you. You look enough like me to fool anyone, especially him." Emily blinks, stunned. "Why would I do that?" she asks. Sophia leans closer, her voice a hiss. "Because if you don't, I'll make sure your mother's treatment stops. No money, no hope." Emily's stomach drops, her mother's frail face flashing in her mind. "You can't do this," she says, but Sophia smirks. "I already have." Emily agrees, her heart heavy with dread. "I have no choice," she thinks, picturing her mother's weakening grip. "But I hate this. I hate lying to him." The next evening, she dons a sleek dress Sophia provides, her hair styled to match. She steps into a charity gala at James's side, her arm looped through his. He glances at her, sensing something off. "You're quiet tonight," he says, his brow furrowing. Emily forces a smile, her voice tight. "Just tired," she replies, but inside she's screaming. "I want to tell you the truth, James. I want you to know me." The crowd sees Sophia, poised and elegant, but James feels a difference, a warmth he's come to crave. She's not the same, he thinks, his suspicion growing. What's happening here? He doesn't voice it, not yet. Instead, he watches her, piecing together the puzzle. Back at the mansion, Emily cooks for James daily, her dishes a quiet rebellion against Sophia's control. She crafts lavender bread, the floral notes blending with buttery softness. James tears off a piece, and the taste washes over him, vivid and clear. "This is magic," he says, his eyes locking with hers. "You're magic." Emily's breath catches, her resolve wavering. "I'm not who you think I am," she wants to say, but the words stick. Instead, she murmurs, "I'm glad you like it." Each meal chips away at the poison's hold, though she doesn't know it. The herbs she uses, rosemary and thyme, carry properties that counter the chemical Sophia slipped into his system. James feels stronger, sharper, and he begins to dig. He calls his assistant late one night, voice low. "Look into Sophia," he says. "Something's not right." The assistant nods, sensing the urgency. "I'll find out," he promises. Sophia grows bolder, her absence is longer as she meets Michael in secret. She leaves Emily to fill her shoes, trusting the disguise. But Emily struggles, her guilt gnawing at her. One afternoon, she sits in the garden staring at the roses James planted years ago, He deserves better than this, she thinks, her eyes stinging. He's kind, broken, and I'm part of the lie. She resolves to tell him, but Sophia's threat looms. That night, she makes a pot of creamy asparagus soup, her hands trembling as she stirs. James sips it, the flavor bursting through the last of his fog. I haven't felt this alive in years, he says, reaching for her hand across the table. Emily pulls back, her voice breaking. I'm sorry, she whispers, fleeing to the kitchen. James stares after her, his mind racing. She's hiding something, he thinks, and I need to know what. The tension builds as Sophia's grip tightens. She calls Emily one evening, her voice icy through the phone. You're doing well, she says. Keep it up or your mother pays the price. Emily clenches her fist, anger flaring. You're a monster, she snaps, but Sophia laughs. I'm in control, she replies. Don't forget that. Emily hangs up, her resolve hardening. I'll find a way out, she thinks, her mind turning to the culinary master competition. If I win, I can save Mom myself. I won't need her. She doesn't know Sophia's next move, a plan to silence her mother for good. James, meanwhile, pieces together clues. His assistant reports back, voice hushed. Sophia's been moving money, he says. And there's more. I found traces of a chemical in your old meal logs, something that kills taste. James's jaw tightens, a storm brewing in his chest. She's been poisoning me, he realizes, his thoughts spinning to Emily. But why does she feel different? Why does she make me feel safe? He decides to test her, inviting Sophia to a private dinner. Emily arrives, dressed as Sophia, her heart pounding. James pours wine, his gaze steady. Tell me about our first date, he says, a trap in his words. Emily freezes, her mind blank. I don't remember, she stammers. James leans closer, his voice soft but firm. Because it's not you, is it? Emily's eyes widen, fear and relief crashing together. James, she starts, but he holds up a hand. Not yet, he says. I'll find the truth. Emily returns to her room, her thoughts a tangle. He knows, she thinks, her heart aching. But does he hate me for it? She cooks the next day, a simple dish of garlic roasted chicken, pouring her apology into every slice. James eats in silence, the taste cutting through the last of the poison. She's saving me, he thinks, a warmth spreading through him. Whoever she is, she's the one I want. Sophia, oblivious, plots her next move, unaware the walls are closing in. Emily clings to hope, her mother's life hanging by a thread, while James edges closer to the secret that will change everything. Emily Harper stands in the kitchen of James Carter's Seattle mansion, her hands shaking as she plates a dish of drunk-on-love goose. The rich aroma of wine-soaked meat fills the air, a desperate bid to reclaim her life. Sophia Carter has pushed her to the edge, orchestrating a fake surgery to kill Emily's mother. The call comes late one night, a nurse's voice trembling through the phone. She didn't make it, the woman says. There were complications we couldn't stop. Emily drops the phone, her knees buckling. No, she whispers, tears streaming down her face. She was all I had left. She fought so hard and I failed her. The pain cuts deep, a wound that fuels her resolve. Sophia did this, she thinks, her voice breaking inside her head. She took my mother, but she won't take me. Determined to break free, Emily turns to the Culinary Master Competition, a national event broadcast from Seattle. The prize money could clear her debts and give her a fresh start. She spends nights perfecting her recipe, her hands moving with a fury born of grief. This is for you, Mom, she murmurs, tasting the sauce. I'll make you proud. The day of the contest arrives, and she steps into the bright lights of the stage, her apron stained but her spirit unbroken. James sits among the judges, his presence a quiet anchor she doesn't expect. Sophia, sensing a chance to crush her, slips into the competition under Emily's name, her plan to sabotage clear. She presents a dish of overcooked chicken, smirking as the crowd murmurs. This is Harper's kitchen, a judge asks, frowning. Emily rushes in, breathless, just as Sophia takes her bow. That's not me, she shouts, her voice raw. I'm Emily Harper, and I'll prove it. The judges grant her a chance, and Emily cooks. her knife flashing as she prepares the drunk-on-love goose. The audience watches, captivated by the precision, the passion. James leans forward, his heart racing. That's her, he thinks, the taste of her past dishes flooding his memory. That's the woman who's been saving me. She finishes, plating the goose with a trembling hand, and the judges taste it. This is extraordinary, one says, eyes wide. The flavors sing, bold yet tender. Another nods. It's like love in every bite. Emily wins, the crowd erupting in cheers, but her victory feels hollow. I did it, Mom, she whispers, looking up, but you're not here to see it. James stands, his gaze locked on her, a realization dawning. She's not Sophia, he thinks. She never was. Back at the mansion, James confronts the truth. His assistant delivers a file, pages spilling with evidence. Sophia's been poisoning you, the man says, handing over lab results. A chemical in your food, subtle but deadly, designed to kill your taste. And she's been stealing millions from the company. James's hands clench, anger surging. All these years, he growls, she's been caging me, and I didn't see it. He thinks of Emily, her gentle hands, her quiet strength. She's been undoing it, he realizes, his chest tightening. Every meal, she's been fighting for me without knowing. He storms to Sophia's room, where she lounges with a glass of wine. It's over, he says, his voice cold. I know everything. Sophia laughs, unfazed. You've got nothing, she snaps. Emily's just a pawn. She'll never tell. But Emily does. She bursts in, her face streaked with tears, her voice shaking with rage. You killed my mother, she says, stepping closer. You used me, lied to me, and took her away. Sophia smirks, standing to meet her. Prove it, she taunts. You've got no one left to fight for. James grabs Sophia's arm, his grip iron. She's got me, he says, his eyes blazing. And you're done. Security arrives, dragging Sophia away as she screams. You'll regret this, both of you. Emily collapses into a chair, her strength spent. I wanted justice, she whispers. But it doesn't bring her back. James kneels beside her, his hand on hers. You're not alone, he says, his voice soft. Not anymore. Then comes the twist, a memory that shifts everything. James looks at Emily, her hazel eyes sparking something buried deep. 5 years ago, he says, his voice trembling, I was at a bar in Seattle, drowning in a deal gone wrong. A woman sat next to me, kind, warm. We talked, drank, and I woke up alone. Was that you? Emily frowns, searching her own past. I worked at a bar back then, she says slowly. All night a man told me about his dreams, his fears. I listened, then left before dawn. Could it be? Their eyes meet, a flood of recognition washing over them. It was you, James says, his heart pounding. I'd been looking for you all this time, and I didn't even know it. Emily's breath catches, her voice barely audible. I thought it was just a night, she says, but it felt like more. The weight of it hits them. A connection forged years ago, lost and found again. James pulls her close, his arm steady around her trembling frame. You saved me then, he says, when you listened, when you cared, and you've saved me now, with every dish, every moment. Emily leans into him, her tears soaking his shirt. I was so lost, she whispers, but with you I feel found. The room quiets, the chaos of Sophia's betrayal fading. James cups her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. I have been blind, he says, but I see you now, Emily. You're my cure, my everything. She nods, a fragile smile breaking through. And you're mine, she replies, her voice steadying. After all this, you're mine. Outside, the city hums, unaware of the storm that's passed. Sophia sits in custody, her empire crumbling, her thoughts dark. They'll pay, she mutters, but her words are empty. Inside, James and Emily stand together, the taste of her goose still on his lips, a promise of what's to come. I don't know what's next, Emily says, her hand in his, but I know I want it with you. James smiles, the first real smile in years. Then we'll figure it out, he says, together. The night stretches on, their bond forged in pain and triumph, a love that's weathered secrets and emerged stronger. Emily Harper walks through the familiar doors of Harper's Kitchen, the little restaurant in Seattle's suburbs where it all began. The air carries the faint scent of wood polish and herbs, a comfort she's missed amid the chaos of James Carter's world. It's been weeks since Sophia's arrest, since the truth unraveled and left them raw but free. Tonight, the place is quiet, the table's empty save for one in the corner where James waits. He stands as she approaches, his suit traded for a simple sweater, his eyes soft with something new. "I thought we should come back here," he says, his voice low and steady. "This is where you changed everything." Emily looks around, her heart swelling. "It feels like home," she says, her fingers brushing the counter. "But it's different now, with you." James takes her hand, guiding her to the table. A single candle flickers between them, casting a warm glow. "I've been thinking," he says, his thumb tracing circles on her skin, "about how lost I was, how I built walls around myself with money and power. I thought it was enough, but it wasn't. Then you came, with your food, your heart, and tore them down." Emily's eyes glisten, her voice catching. "I was lost too," she admits. "After Mom died, I didn't know who I was without her. Cooking kept me going, but you gave me a reason to feel again." He squeezes her hand, a silent promise in the gesture. "You saved me, Emily," he says. "Not just my taste, my life. I want to spend it with you." Before she can respond, James slides a small box across the table, his hands trembling slightly. He opens it, revealing a ring, simple yet radiant, like the light she's brought him. "Marry me," he says, his voice breaking with emotion. "I've tasted the world and nothing compares to you. You're my cure, my home. Be my wife." Emily stares at the ring, then at him, her breath hitching. "James," she whispers, tears spilling over. "I thought I'd never find this, not after everything. But you're my safe place, my strength. Yes, I'll marry you." He slips the ring onto her finger and she laughs through her tears, a sound of pure joy. "I love you," she says, the words spilling out. "I've loved you since that night 5 years ago, even if I didn't know it then." James pulls her close, his lips brushing her forehead. "I love you too," he replies. "I always will." They sit there, wrapped in each other, the weight of the past lifting. "I want to do something," Emily says, pulling back with a spark in her eyes. "A dinner here for us, to celebrate." James nods, his smile wide. "Anything you want," he says, "as long as I get to eat it." She heads to the kitchen, her movements fluid, alive. She decides on maple glazed chicken, the dish that started it all, its sweet and savory notes a symbol of their journey. The stove hums to life, and she loses herself in the rhythm, chopping, seasoning, tasting. "This is for us," she thinks, her heart full. "For the life we're building." James watches from the table, marveling at her. She's incredible, he thinks, the taste of her love already on his tongue. "I'll never take this for granted." The meal comes together, and Emily plates it with care, setting it before James. She joins him, their chairs pulled close. He takes a bite, and the flavors burst, as vivid as the first time. "Perfect," he says, his eyes shining. "Just like you." Emily smiles, taking a bite herself, the taste grounding her. "It's us," she says. Simple, real, strong. They eat in comfortable silence, the candlelight dancing, the world outside fading away. "I used to think happiness was impossible," James says, setting down his fork. "I'd wake up every day, numb, trapped. But now, with you, I feel everything. The good, the hard, all of it. And I want it all." Emily reaches for his hand, her voice soft. "I was scared to hope," she says. "Losing Mom broke me, but you put me back together. This, us, it's more than I dreamed." The night deepens, and they linger, sharing stories of their pasts. James tells her about his childhood, summers by the lake, before ambition swallowed him whole. "I want that again," he says. "A life that's ours, not just mine." Emily nods, her mind drifting to her mother's laughter over a shared meal. She'd love you, she says, her voice thick. She'd say you're good for me. James pulls her into his arms, holding her tight. He'll spend every day proving her right, he promises, his breath warm against her hair. They stay like that, the quiet wrapping around them, a peace neither thought they'd find. Word spreads in Seattle about their love, Harper's Kitchen becoming a local legend. People whisper about the chef who healed a tycoon with her food, about the romance born over a plate of chicken. Emily and James don't mind the talk. They're too busy living it. One evening, they host a small gathering at the restaurant, friends and staff filling the space. Emily cooks, her hands steady, her heart light. She serves the maple-glazed chicken, and the room hums with delight. James raises a glass, his voice carrying. To Emily, he says, the woman who gave me back my senses, my soul, to us. The crowd toasts, and Emily blushes, leaning into him. To you, she replies, the man who made me believe in love again. As the night winds down, they step outside, the Seattle sky clear for once, stars peeking through. What now? Emily asks, her hand in his. James looks at her, his future in her eyes. We live, he says. We love, we eat, we grow. Together? She nods, a smile spreading. I like that, she says. A life full of flavor. They walk back inside, the restaurant glowing behind them, a beacon of their bond. Emily thinks of her mother, a quiet gratitude settling in. You'd be happy for me, she murmurs to the night. I found him. James pulls her close, his arm around her shoulders, and they step into their tomorrow, healed and whole.